Hello and welcome to the Economic Times Spectrum Business and Technology Virtual Conclave, Reclaiming Growth Through Technology. The topic for this panel discussion is staying focused on your customers in today's world. The esteemed panel members for this session is on the top of their business in the respective fields. Let me introduce to you Mr. Martin Schwenk, MD and CEO of Mercedes-Benz India, a leading luxury car manufacturer. We are also joined by Mr. Sanjay Kapoor, Chairman, Sona Comstar, a leading auto component manufacturer. And we are also joined by Mr. Keshav Murgesh, who is Group CEO at WNS. WNS is a leading BPO firm. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining ET Spectrum. Before we start the discussion, let's have a quick, brief thought on what has really changed after COVID when it comes to customer relations or customer operations. We'll start with Martin, you.
Well, we already knew before COVID that customers want to meet their brands, their products, wherever they are and whenever they want to meet. During the COVID lockdowns, obviously, there was then a strong push into the digital world. We launched, for example, a Merck from Home campaign, which is completely digital based, a digital sales process, digital assisted by, and I think that is clearly one of the effects we saw is a drastic acceleration of using of digital tools. At the same time, I don't want to forget that on the ground and in the dealerships, as soon as lockdowns go away, the customer still expects a physical touch point and a clear set up according to the latest safety and cleanliness protocols. So we have really seen a strong push in the digital world, and I think that is what most of the industry is now working on at the same time.
Thank you, Martin. Sanjay, you operate in completely different environment, different business. You have mostly B2B customers. How has it been different for you, and what all have you been doing in terms of employing technology to engage with the customers as you cannot meet them physically? And how is it working for you in multiple geographies?
Nabil, one thing I must say is customers have been extremely supportive. When we went into this problem, we already came in from 15 months of pain in the auto component industry. Customers understood the pain that we've been through. The challenges in this time have been cash flow, labor, and raw material. These are three big challenges at this time. Customers have supported the component manufacturers by paying on time, which has really helped the supply chain all the way down, right to the tier 3 suppliers. So that's been of great help to the component industry. We've also digitized very quickly, something that we would have taken a lot longer to do. We've been able to do much quicker. We've had several interactions with our customers over, webinars, Zoom calls, etc. Our customers have addressed us with concerns, with our concerns. We've been able to talk to them about product development. We've been able to talk to them about supply chain. And as Martin rightly pointed out, we've digitized very quickly, and safety has been and always been a great concern or great driving force in the auto component and the automotive industry. So, we've always looked at safety. We've done the same with our supply chain as well, where we've tracked, our entire supply base in terms of safety, in terms of, the whole infection with COVID, etc. So it's been a learning experience. It's been a great experience in terms of bringing, us all together in this time, all fighting one common cause or one common enemy. And we've definitely digitized much sooner than we would have in normal circumstances.
Keshav, you have already been working remotely for your customers. How things have changed for you? Was it easier for you compared to others to get into this?
Okay, that's a great question, and it's so nice to be on this discussion. So first and foremost, I must tell you, WNS is a company with 45,000 people operating from 16 countries and 61 delivery centers. And pre-COVID, there was no such thing as work from home. We operated from this huge infrastructure that we created across the globe. And therefore, when the pandemic broke out, we saw the trends coming in from some of our different countries, and therefore we prepared for it globally. But if you think of it, what I feel happened was really a supernova 2x moment, because overnight we had to move an industry which essentially operated from large physical kind of offices to an entirely untested work from home environment. So I had to personally, at that time, I also had to happen to be the chairman of NASCOM. And I therefore took the responsibility of ensuring that our entire, people's assets in terms of desktops, as well as, all the things that go with it, were moved to people's homes. We worked with the, OSPs to make sure that we were to a great extent able to deliver uninterrupted kind of bandwidth, uninterrupted power wherever it was possible, work closely with our clients. Because remember, in our business, there is no question of business disruption. We cannot stop working for critical business processes for global banks or insurance companies or hospitals, healthcare companies, things like that. And airplanes cannot take off or land if we do not do what we are needed to do at a very quick pace. So what I would like to say is that we work closely with our clients. We ensured our people were safe. We kept communicating with both sets of stakeholders. And most importantly, we focused a lot on the cyber security aspect of things, which was originally a big concern for clients. But fast forward a few months, it is a very stable operation. If you actually go to our website, you'll see a number of clients actually saying how positive this experience has been, and in fact, how they want to invest even more in a work from home model, driving digital models.
Thank you, Keshav. I'll come to you, Martin. You are a customer-focused company. For you, communicating to the customer is very important, and you have to continuously connect with the customer. In such a scenario, what are the steps or the measures you have taken so that you don't break contact with your customers?
Well, I think we already spoke about the digital support we have there. I mean, one core element is obviously a digital platform where you can purchase our vehicles, for example, that we installed, and we had it already rolled out a little earlier, but then we accelerated from pre-owned cars to have all the new cars then included as well. That is then the platform, but that doesn't really make a full journey. So what is essential is that customers then also can connect not only with system, but also with people. For example, we implemented that then what we call an assisted buying process. You have an online sales concierge which gets in contact with the customer and helps him to discuss, decide content, questions, and at the end also in the system itself. So we think it is more when you want to address a customer than just providing a platform. You have to look into the entire journey, where and how to support the customer. And then when it comes to vehicles, you cannot stop digitally. You have to have test drive capabilities. You have to have physical handovers of vehicles at their homes. So there's a lot of things we did along this. But obviously, we also work more in the analytics field. I mean, today you can, with data, do a lot of things. So we're trying also to reach out to our customers to find out what is their needs, what is their wants, how will they develop going forward, and we try to address that then also with more specific marketing campaigns and offerings to the actual liking of the customers. So there's multiple ways of doing that. But a lot of it is definitely based on technology today.
Thank you, Martin. I'll come to you, Sanjay, because the current situation is very dynamic. You do not have, perfect order at your hand. It keeps fluctuating. In such a scenario, how did you maintain inventory and deliveries when you have very limited access to physical, resources? How did you do it? How did you communicate? How did you manage that?
So, Nabil, we went through a very difficult April, just as an industry, where we had actually no production because of the lockdown. Several countries did not lock down. For example, several countries in Europe, like Germany, did not lock down. In the United States, farm equipment was essential services. Some vehicles were still being produced in the United States. And that definitely impacted, production from our end. as a component industry in India, definitely, became a threat at some point in time. However, again, like I said, our customers have been extremely supportive and understanding. This is something that's been beyond our control. We've implemented a lot of 4.0, which allows you to have flexibility in operations, and the whole notion of 4.0 is flexible in automation, and how do you ramp up and ramp down when you need to. Fortunately, we were not sitting on a lot of inventory as an industry, and we were able to manage that. I must say that we tracked our entire supply chain downstream, and our entire supply chain is pretty healthy. Given the fact that after the 2008-2009 crisis, I feel that several automotive companies built very robust businesses. Of course, companies in high debt will always have problems. However, there have not been many companies which have high debt, which has really been a relief for the industry. So I think it's a matter of collaborating with each other. We've been able to pull through. Our business models have changed. For example, in Sona, 80% of our business is export and 20% is domestic. Earlier it was skewed almost 50-50. However, given the fact that the export market is growing at the rate it is, it's been a positive growth for us. I also feel that the domestic market has come back much sooner than we thought it would. You've seen the numbers in rural India, you've seen farm equipment, you've seen passenger cars. Yes, commercial vehicles is a little bit away from coming back at this point in time due to regulations and regulatory changes, etc. However, other things are working well for us in the component industry, and we can see that across the supply chain.
Thank you, Sanjay. I'll come to you, Keshav, again. You have already taken a few steps of lead when it comes to work from home or work remotely. So what are the key learning that you'd like to share with your counterparts in the different industry like automotive, manufacturing, or any other industry?
So first and foremost, I think from our perspective, while we had to keep the lights on for clients, we had to make sure that employee safety was highest. At the same time, we also had to keep on understanding what each one of our global clients were actually going through from their own business point of view, and then shaping our strategies and our delivery models in order to be very partner-like during the period of stress for them as well. And for us, therefore, while we did all the physical part of moving desktops, laptops home, moving employees, making sure all of the other part, the infrastructure part was handled, we kept over communicating with our clients as well as our employees. And the communication around clients was around what? First and foremost, giving them the comfort that we were able to actually manage the situation extremely well, leveraging a co-created solution where client and us created the solution to work from people's homes. The second was focus a lot on taking the discussion beyond the traditional BCP to what I call PCP, or pandemic continuity planning, because every global client actually said, today it's COVID, tomorrow it could be something completely different. How are you helping to prepare for it and making sure there's no disruption? So that's the second thing. The third, I would say, is helping them to understand the impact of technologies and the discussions that we had pre-COVID and why they had to be accelerated, such that points of non-contact, physical non-contact, were removed, and the ability to use technology to actually leverage business solutions was focused on. And finally, giving them comfort around control and compliance. So all of this has been happening. And at the same time, I will say that there are two areas that we focused on. One I would call the hyper surge model, which is essentially quickly get into the business, make sure that whatever assets were available were leveraged to make sure the client's business did not go down. And today, it is all about hyper lead, which is transforming the business model. So in this market as well, each of the clients are actually being differentiated and are looking at gaining new market share, while we as a company and the BPM industry itself is looking at growing its entire kind of footprint based on the experiences here. So I would say just ensuring that technology, skilling, over communication with clients, and putting together the right transformative models is what helped us.
Thank you, Keshav. I'll come to you, Martin, again and try to understand. You have a multiple workforces, multiple functions. How did you ensure that the productivity doesn't go down? How did you utilize your workforces? Because that's a very important element in times like this.
Well, if you think as our production and our sales organization in total, I think really there is two different elements. I personally think on the sales side, we were really able to keep productivity at the normal levels. The work from home, we already spoke about that, worked extremely well, extraordinary well. Whilst we already had policy in place to do that, I personally would never have expected that it's possible to basically bring the entire business in terms of planning, reviewing, strategizing, and also operationally managing into an online space, including interviews or web panels like this. I would never have thought. So I think my personal view is the work from home situation didn't create a gap in say, productivity or even in a professional approach at all. On production, the world is obviously a little bit different. We had a lot of restrictions in the early phases, and one restriction obviously is also availability of labor. So it meant some people were in outstations. We need to get them back, and obviously the protocols around that we have at the moment in distancing and so forth. It took us a couple of weeks really to come back to what I consider our normal productivity, and at present we are really close to in that sense. But obviously this is much more difficult in that field, because there we are physically on the ground and we need to make sure that everyone working in the workstations in the factory is really safe, and that obviously adds a couple of layers in complexity to our environment. Overall, I think we can be very satisfied with how things have developed, and I'm really happy how the management in our factories and then also in the sales organization, it really deal with it. At the same time, the dealers are in similar questions and fields. I see on the dealer side very strong work relationships and very strong working in the sales environment, a lot of activity, but obviously when it comes to customer service, you need the shops to be open to actually work. And right now, I think we are close to pre-COVID times in terms of how operations work there, again, with all the safety protocols in place.
Thank you, Martin. Sanjay, how did you employ technology to optimize the outcome of your resources, and how effective were they?
So Nabil, I mean, we have employed digital work from home, etc., as much as we can. However, we're a manufacturing company, and there's only that so much we can do without going into work. So we've been able to bring our manufacturing back up to speed, as Martin said, at to pre-COVID levels. Not only just manufacturing, but even the market, I feel, is, or our sales are almost pre-COVID levels now, given the fact that we have a large component of export as well. We've been able to deploy a lot of our 4.0 or Industry 4.0 initiatives much faster. That's all that's really happened, is that we've compressed the time required to digitize and to deploy automation and other sort of tools that help, or technology tools that help us in a more efficient production system. Given the fact that we have to have social distancing, we have to follow certain SOPs for safety and security, this has allowed us to deploy more technology so that we're able to create an environment where we're not afraid of spreading the virus or infecting people, etc. Because a start-stop model cannot work efficiently with a supply chain, with a complex supply chain that we have in the automotive world. We can't afford something like that. So companies have used this time also to upgrade technology. They've used this time to look at automation. With automation comes skilling, which is again required, because as we automate, we're going to have to skill people. Because again, we're going to have to get them used to that kind of system. Companies have used this time to deploy more, of Industry 4.0. so that we can bring about the changes that are required in this industry. And again, I continuously say this, we were all going down this path. The automotive industry is a highly complex supply chain and is a very mature industry, and we were all going down this path. This has allowed us to compress the time and bring it together. So it's been an opportunity. Like they say, never waste a good crisis. And I think that's what we've been able to do.
So before we go into detailed discussion on AI or Industry 4.0, I'll come to you, Keshav, and understand your customer scenario has also changed. Maybe there's no major change at your end, at your functioning, because you were anyway working remotely and you were deploying probably highest level of technology when it comes to remote working. But at your customer level, there has been change, certainly. There has been change in terms of demands, and you have seen dynamism over there. So how are you, dealing with that kind of, VUCA kind of situation there?
Sure. So I'll tell you, we service clients across 6 or 7 key verticals. And, if you look at airline and travel, we are probably the globe's biggest provider of services to that whole area. And 6 months into the crisis, that whole area is still very badly impacted from a demand point of view. But does it mean that these people don't need help? No, they actually need more help than ever during this point in time. I'll talk about some of the things that we're doing for that industry. At the same time, if you look at banking, financial services, and insurance, for example, insurance also continues to be very badly impacted. It's our largest vertical. But from a demand point of view, it continues to be badly impacted because fewer people are really driving cars at this point in time. Claims, therefore, have reduced, and therefore the need to actually focus much more on the healthcare side of things has increased dramatically. Things will start coming back, but we're seeing it's a very slow comeback for certain industries, including the shipping and logistics industry, where we're actually seeing blank sailings at this
So
point.
have you employed some kind of technology or method where you can predict where you need to put what kind of workforce and what kind of technology, or how do you handle certain sectors that you talked about?
Yeah, so as a company, we have always invested very strongly in robotic technologies, analytics technologies, artificial intelligence, and machine learning kind of technologies. But you have to understand that from a client point of view, not every client is ready to move ahead with all of these discussions, right? Many move ahead, a few take a little longer. And COVID actually is one of the biggest opportunities for us to be able to push that mandate with every one of our clients. And there are many, kind of technologies that are being leveraged across the core verticals. So inside the company, there are, our own, anything that is strategic, we own the IP ourselves. We have relationships with, partners, technology partners across the globe. We have created a number of horizontal and vertical led technologies that are very empowering to clients. And even to run our day-to-day operations at this point in time. Remember, people are now working from their homes. We have now created HR bots to help them manage their day-to-day HR kind of issues. We have created, robots which are actually helping to deploy learning solutions and skilling solutions to these people. And we have created digital dashboards and digital platforms that can monitor cyber risks that are taking place at homes of people and also report back to our clients. And I think all of this is very new for the industry and has also been built during this crisis and being appreciated by clients across the globe.
Thank you, Keshav. I'll come to you, Martin, before I go to Sanjay. Martin, I have seen that there has been a lot of change in terms of product preference also. So how are you changing your product design or features looking at the current situation, and what are those changes that you are making to suit the current market situation?
I mean, if you talk product, then for sure the first thing comes to mind is the connected car. I mean, already last year we had a lot of emphasis on rolling out what we call Mercedes Me Connect, the connectivity with the possibility for customers to interact directly with their vehicle. And I think one relatively interesting feature, and it shows the power of a connected vehicle, we were able to deploy over the air to all our connected cars with the MMC Connect modules, that they can find that when you search for COVID testing facilities, you find that in your map now. So I tell that as an example how there is multi-channels which we can use to further develop in order to interact with customers and also to use technology. Connected vehicles, e-commerce and all of this together pushes then the digital world. Other than that, obviously our car says still a lot about design and new models, and we use the opportunity then also in this situation to launch our product portfolio and to keep and stay on track with new cars, because at the end what the customers want from us is beautifully engineered and high-tech vehicles, which we are constantly churning out. And just recently, for example, we launched our GLS SUV. So things like this will obviously help also to manage through the crisis and entice the customers to purchase vehicles.
Martin will talk about the impact of virtual launches, product launches. Before that, I would like to bring in Sanjay here. Sanjay, you have been talking about AI and automation for a long time on the shop floor. How do you see digital manufacturing or smart manufacturing gaining strength amidst this COVID crisis? And what is your estimation in terms of manufacturing? How will it shift? How much investment do you see that is going to be made in smart manufacturing or digitalization of the manufacturing?
So Nabil, I mean, this goes back to, Industry 4.0. That's what smart manufacturing is. If I want to break it down in a very, very simple way, what we've been doing over years is Kaizen, which is continuous improvement. We're just going to digitize all that. That's really what it is. When we merge AI with smart manufacturing or with AI 4.0, to give you an example, if I've got testing at the end of my line, if I can teach or machine learning can teach the equipment to identify the problem, then that's, you've achieved AI as well as, brought Industry 4.0 into it. So to give you an example, we make gears and sometimes, a lot of the problems that occur on gears is a dent. Can the machine identify the dent, and therefore you can redeploy the human being to do something better and something more challenging than just, looking at end control, what we call end control or product control. So, companies are moving towards this model. At CII, we're doing a lot of work to implement smart manufacturing. We've got an initiative, that looks at this. We're mapping out what companies have smart manufacturing or have implemented Industry 4.0, what kind of implementation has occurred, and bringing in other companies that need that help. We are working with our supply chain downstream to see how we can help them. Investments are going to be required. There's no doubt. I can't put a finger on it in terms of the quantum of investments. However, we are going to have to invest to automate, and these are going to give us great results at the end of it.
Thank you, Sanjay. I'll come to you again. Martin, you talked about virtual launches. Can you give us a sense how effective is it to launch a product through virtual platform? How does it help? Does it help you in terms of cost cut? But the impact, how do you see the impact in terms of customer reach, in terms of creating buzz around the product? How has it been for you?
Well, we had two major product launch events in the last couple of weeks. And I have to say we have a learning curve. We started when we launched late May, C63, two AMG cars, a C63 Coupe and a GTR. We did experiment. We had very restricted audience. And at the end it worked, but we didn't really get the full impact. Then we came to the GLS launch, that was middle of June. And I think we had massively improved our performance there and made it much more interesting also for everyone watching. So we had interactive elements, we changed locations, we made a product presentation, but also discussion as part of the setup. So I would think if it's possible to create something which is interesting, and there I'm talking now into two main groups who are interested. The one is the journalists, who would then pick up and communicate. So we need to make sure that the journalists get relevant information they need, that they have the information to tweet it, to post it. So we supply them additionally with background information so that they can in time also support the launch with what they see. At the other end, we have the general public who is interested, and we can really see this interest is picking up. I mean, obviously, when people spend a lot of time in front of their screens, they also are attuned to follow what's happening online. I would think the product launch itself in a digital way can be very efficient. It's definitely cost efficient, and it can even be fun to do it if you really experiment, try something new. On the other hand, a car is a physical, it is as physical as it can get. So I think we will never be fully able to convey how it feels. Think of an AMG. We did obviously play the sound of the engine revving up, but that doesn't, that cannot replace, for example, journalists posing with the cars, looking at the cars, doing reviews on site when you have a physical launch, or if you think of tribe events linked to launches. These are activities we need in order to have a strong footprint. So costs are definitely much lower, but I think also the impact is a little lower if you think of the overall impact we can have.
My question is, have you made these technologies good friend enough for you to launch your products even digitally when the times are better, when social distancing is gone? Do you think you can choose some of product at least to launch digitally, or probably a combination of digital and physical also? Do you think it can be?
I think we will see something what you mentioned. A combination is probably very likely, because then you can try to have the benefits from both different angles. I mean, we have all seen, for example, also for journalists, how much time we can save by not traveling. I mean, and I would see also from an interest from a journalist point of view that they would also wish in future to have a digital channel they can connect. On the other hand, I'm also certain the physical presence, whenever feasible, will still be preferred for many of the journalists. And at the end, a launch is a lot about presenting it to the general public, but also to the press. So I think we will probably come to some intelligent mixes, which we already try here and there to mix online and offline experiences, and see how we do launch versus product and test drive experience, and combine that in a way. So if you ask me, I think it will be a hybrid solution also going forward. And every product will be a little bit more digital, a little bit more physical, depending on what we see, how we get the best impact in the market.
Thank you, Martin. Keshav, can you give us a sense? You operate in multiple sectors. After COVID, what percentage of workforce you expect to be working from home or remotely? What is your estimation, and which are the functions you think is easily, adaptable to this change, even when COVID is gone?
Sure. So let me, explain how our business has got transformed and is transforming during this crisis. Martin spoke about the virtual sales model. Do you know that when we interact with clients who are on the insurance side or manufacturing side or retail or whatever, they want to interact physically with us. So quite often large teams of theirs actually fly across the pond and interact with us across different countries just to understand the scope of work and how we will deliver and stuff. What we did during COVID was to create a completely virtual platform where a prospect or a customer wanting to do more work with us can actually take the entire decision online virtually. The entire solution set, the interaction with the leadership team on my side, the entire transition plan is virtual. The ability for them to actually see virtual offices in India, in Sri Lanka, in the Philippines, in South Africa, including their branding inside, right, has been created for them. And finally, they can actually see the actual team that is going to operate on their project. They can take the decision sitting where they are, and that has given them tremendous comfort. We have won boatloads of business in the last 4 months or 5 months with this model. That's the first thing I must say. We also created new models which are completely tech-enabled and are transforming industry. So, for example, insurance in a box is a new model that has been introduced in a very, very conservative insurance market. Fintech in a box is something that we introduced, which is going to transform the whole fintech industry, I believe. Now, to your question, because of all that we have done, we are also saying that why do we need to have these physical models where all of us are sitting in the old offices? So the new models I'm defining as hub, spoke, and edge models. The hub will be the traditional offices. The edge will be work from home, and we'll also have satellite offices close to these people. It will play out over a period of time. What we are doing at this point in time is working with the government in order to help them understand how work from home can actually stay on for a much longer period. I'm part of a task force that is now helping to make the relaxations of work from home permanent, if you ask me. And therefore, I see that a higher component can now work from home, but I don't see it replacing the work from office completely. I think it will be something that will get blended in. This other thing we have to do in India is work on the labor laws, because that's a very important component. If you want to work from home and blend it into what you're doing, labor laws must be changed. They must be enabled to have the gig economy kick in. You have to be allowed to have part-time employment. Personally, I think it's the biggest opportunity for us to take this model into tier 3, tier 4 locations, and more importantly, engage at least part of the 110 million women in India who have a secondary education degree, but who are not part of any workforce because they want part-time employment. So it's a very powerful potential model. I am extremely positive about how this is going to drive India's capability and growth prospects on the BPM side.
I completely agree with you, Keshav. You have rightly put bringing women folks into the working system and, democratizing it to the rural area also. Right now, it is concentrated into urban. So we will have equal distribution of income also. That will be perfect for our economy also. And to talk about the transformation, we have also made huge transformation. We were doing physical conferences. Now we are doing, virtual one. We have developed our own platform, VConfex, on which this show is also being broadcast live right now. So I'll come to you, Sanjay. Keshav talked about, hub to edge. How do you see this kind of model being implemented in a manufacturing setup? Because you have a lot of constraints. So how do you think this can be at least to the minimal level, it can be adopted? Or he also talked about inclusive, workforce that is spread across gender and geographies or, demography.
So I think, one thing Keshav said, which was very, very important, and which is something more to dwell upon, is the fact that we've had a lot of migrant labor go back to rural India. How can we bring jobs to rural India is going to be something that's going to really create a lot of growth in India. So I think, that's the right step and the right approach, what Keshav talked about in terms of creating more jobs there. In terms of supply chain, we've obviously, employed a lot of labor that's local. We've been tracking the labor all across, all through the time that we were in COVID, even when we were not in production. We were tracking our labor very carefully to see who was infected, who was not infected, any sort of illnesses, etc., and how many people had left. Because, one, you've got migrant labor, but then you've got people who are actually don't live in and around where you work, and then they go back home and they haven't been allowed to come back, a lot of them. So, we've still got a lot of people who are out there who haven't been able to come back. So, this has changed the dynamics of how we operate, in general, in terms of how we manage people, how we operate. And, the fact that Keshav again talked about labor laws, etc., where we refer to ease of doing business. I think we need to look at ease of doing digital business, and not just ease of doing business, but cost of doing business. And, these are the things that are actually changing, and these changes are being brought about because of this pandemic. because of this crisis and because of the way that we've been able to adapt to a newer environment and make the changes that we've been able to make.
Martin, your customer base is also changing. Earlier, it used to be the tier one cities, but now your sales has been coming from tier two and tier three cities also. And your service, the cost of providing a traditional way of service centers has been very huge. So how do you think this time, like, crisis has shown you some ways where employing technology or coming up with a model which are low on cost, but you are able to deliver satisfactory services to your customer also?
Well, I mean, if you look at what the customer wants, there is several elements, and I think what we work on is offering very suitable and competitive service packages, for example, in all markets. That is in the bigger cities and the smaller cities. I think what is very important for customers all along their transaction with us, or actually generally, is important to have a good level of transparency and a high level of convenience, and to make sure that the customer is satisfied in these fields. We have to work with digital elements to create transparency, to make sure that customers understand, for example, if you talk a repair service or maintenance service, that they have updates and understand the status of their vehicles. We have rolled out stuff around that, which we call DSD Next. We have pricing and offering that you can actually see online and find not only, for example, which cars we have in used cars, which is a strong market development as well, and in new cars. So you actually see the inventory, you see the prices, you can even online discuss with dealers and get special offers for you unlocked then. So I think it is the full experience that we need to look into. And yes, we have to focus on all markets. We see the smaller tier 2, tier 3 cities developing in higher growth rates. But at the same time, I should clearly say, if I think of our major metros, they are still in absolute numbers the far biggest. I mean, Delhi and Bombay together is around 40% of our sales numbers. And a little bit lower growth in these areas is still much more in absolute numbers than we would see in the tier 2, tier 3 markets. Really coming into efficiencies that we will work on in the entire network. That is something which needs to happen between the manufacturer and the dealers to work on fixed cost optimization, to be efficient, and then at the end also to offer the customers a very good offering at very suitable and acceptable pricing level.
Martin, do you see going forward the size of your dealership becoming smaller? You have massive palatial showrooms, but that tracks a lot of cost. Looking at the dealers' profit margin shrinking and the business environment also not so great when it comes to profitability, or you cannot demand the cost that you would want or the price for your product. So do we see this changing going forward from the automakers?
I think it is important always in these times now specifically to be very, very clear about we need a profitable dealer network as such. And when sales come under pressure, the question is, what can we do in optimizing? And we have already in the past supported dealers, not only with financial measures, but at the same time, we discussed with them footprint discussion. So in the one or other case, we have really looked into, does a showroom have to be that big as it is at the moment, or can it be used in a different way? For example, an example which I really like, in Delhi, we have a very big showroom that we then made a little bit smaller, and we put two repair bays into that. So the customer now not can only see new cars, but they can see what we call express maintenance bays. So they can actually see the live action on the cars, and we could basically kill two birds with one stone. The general footprint of the dealership was not reduced, but we added additional productive and also additional revenue generating functions into the showroom itself with a glass wall in between. So I think that is solutions which we're looking at the end, creating cost efficiency, finding revenue potential for the dealers, and securing the profitability of the dealer network and the individual dealer itself.
Thank you, Martin. Before we conclude this session, I'd just like to hear from all of you a brief, comment on how do you use the technology to transform your respective business. I'll start with Sanjay. Only a few words.
So I think, I've talked about it throughout. Digital, we've gone digital, and I think this is going to continue. The more we can use technology in the shop floor, and the better bandwidth that we have, to use technology, the quicker we're going to be able to adapt or adopt newer technology. So I think, bandwidth is key. Going digital is key. Work from home has become a new normal, and automation. And I say this all the time, automation is going to happen, and we're going to see this across the supply chain. So we're going to have to brace ourselves for automation. And with that will come a lot of changes in skilling, in manpower, in managing efficiencies.
Thank you. Sanjay, I'll come to you, Keshav. What's your final comment with few words?
So Nabil, for me, digital is being used to grow the market for our services. We were always very digitally savvy. Clients loved the way we talked to them about digital and introduced those services. And today, even 6 months after COVID came in, we have hardly 10% working in the office, 90% working from home. So clients now trust the model, trust us, want to grow with us because they understand we will lead them down digital models that they can't do on their own.
Martin, your final take.
Well, for me, technology has a lot to do with mindset. It means basically to focus on what the customer wants and use then and develop the tools that customers' needs are met. And then obviously we need to use the technology to be efficient in our processes, to come to real-time decision making, to come to real-time information. I spoke about transparency and, for example, and convenience. So at the end, it becomes also a huge enabler for the entire auto industry.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining ET Spectrum and bringing life to this pertinent topic. And you have given really elaborate and insightful answers to all the questions. Thank you so much, Martin, Keshav, and Sanjay, for joining ET Spectrum. Please stay tuned to ET Spectrum. On the other side, you have much more exciting panels coming up. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great to be here.